God, that stench. 2 crisp Spam sizzled in a pan as I held my arm to my nose. The popping sound of fatty meat was loud enough to carry over Jean Valjean's heartfelt plea to Javert from Les Miserables playing in the theater below our apartment. I'd accidentally burned the thinner pieces while peeling the potatoes, and there was no salvaging it at that point. Whatever finesse my mother had always had in the kitchen had failed to grace my genetics. I hated cooking the canned crap, but Mom had developed a weird craving for meat lately, and we'd run out of the thin, round steak she'd come to like eating rare. I couldn't help but wonder if her strange requests might have been her body trying to get better. I hoped so, anyway. Watching her devour rare meat with the blood running out of the corners of her mouth had me feeling like a spectator in a gory episode of Hostile Planet, an appetite-withering sight. Particularly since my mother had never really been much of a meat eater anyway. Spam was a far cry from steak, but my stepdad Connor, if I could even call him that, hadn't worked a couple days, which left us short on grocery money. "Bea," I called out from my younger half-sister, the nickname short for Beatrix, and tossed the charred Spam onto awaiting plates. "Do you check on Mama like I asked?" "Oh, shit!" The thud of footfalls followed her curse, and with a smirk I shook my head. At 12 years old, about 4 years younger than me, she carried a lot more responsibility than most girls her age. Both of us did. Mama's illness had gotten worse. So much worse, and the fact that she refused to see a doctor about it only put more pressure on Bea and me to navigate the progression of her strange symptoms ourselves. While Mama still seemed to have her wits about her, there were moments, terrifying moments, like the nights she'd tell me that evil men were coming for me, the nights she'd be covered in sweat, her eyes glowing with unseen horrors. Monsters, she called those invisible tormentors. But in her mind, they were as real as the deep black circles beneath her eyes. Although as horrible as it was to say, with her sickly, distorted spine, silvery, glowing eyes, and deep protruding bones, she'd begun to look like the very monsters of which she spoke. Praying had never really been my thing, but I'd done an awful lot of aimless pleading on my knees over the last few weeks, and if God existed, he sure as hell didn't offer much hope. As I spooned the last glob of mashed potatoes for Bea, a knock at the door halted my plating. Frowning, I quietly placed the pan back onto the stovetop and wiped my hands onto a nearby kitchen towel. With cautious steps, I padded toward the hallway and peered at the entry door. Another hard thud jerked my muscles, and the audacity of whatever was behind that obnoxious racket heated my blood. I tromped toward the door, and through the peephole spied a man I didn't recognize. Deep-set, beady eyes, a scar at his left eye, and an oddly crooked nose, like he'd been in one too many fights, made him look like a walking mugshot. One thing I'd learned from living in a city like Covington, you didn't answer the door to strangers, particularly ones who looked like criminals. He pounded against the door again, and I ground my teeth with annoyance. "Yeah?" I called through the barrier. "What do you want?" At first he didn't answer, and I watched him look around toward the hallway. Something about him, those dark eyes I'd only caught a glimpse of, and the smirk of his lips, sent a crawling chill beneath my skin. What a creep. I glanced at the door's deadbolt, making sure it was engaged. Unfortunately, the apartment didn't have the greatest or most robust locks.
"I'm a friend of Connor's,"
he finally said.
"Is he here?"
"No."
"Any idea when he'll be back?"
Studying his face proved challenging since the guy seemed to refuse to look up. "Look, I don't—" At the sound of a piercing scream, my spine snapped straight and I swung my attention toward the back rooms. Abandoning the weirdo at the front door, I dashed across the apartment toward the sliver of light shining beneath the bathroom door. Light. The first sign that something was wrong. Mama had grown to hate the light, said it hurt her eyes. "Mama, no!" A whisper of fear spiraled down the back of my neck at what I recognized as Bea screaming at my mother on the other side of the door, and I pushed through into the brightly lit bathroom. Mama stood alongside the tub, making a strange growling sound while water splashed onto the floor.